it seems a little easy. It sounds easier than what it is. But Kevin Durant versus Kawhi. Yeah. If we had to say, taking these two guys at their best, at the best points in their careers, right? Obviously, Kawhi's being 2019, and Kevin Durant's probably being 2017. Do we want to say that's his peak? Because there were a couple of years though with Kevin Durant where there's 2021 postseason where he averaged 35 points a game, and then there's also 2014 MVP KD.
I'll say his peak, especially now, if you're talking about a player that hasn't won a championship, that's where you can pick their peak set. But Kevin Durant won a championship, so I feel like you have to pick the championship year as the peak. Because people would always you would always try to tell me like LeBron's peak year is 2017. I'm like, nah, it's that Heat. It was when he was with the Heat. That 20. Yeah. I know he averaged less points, but that was just a different impact he had on the game. Yeah. But I just view the championship year today, the player win as their peak.
Yeah. Who do you think has optimized their prime better between Kawhi and Kevin Durant? KD. It's really tough with Kawhi because when we look at the course of his career, he's a guy that a lot of people think he was voted, I think somebody put out the Bleacher Report put out a list of top 5 most overrated players, and Kawhi was on there. But if you look at his career resume, you're like, what? How many defensive player of the years? 2 or 3, somewhere around there.
2 or 3.
2 championships.
Most of it is just he's just been hurt a lot, man.
That's what I'm saying.
I think some of his injuries really not that fault. Really not his fault, to be honest.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't even know he hurt. Let's be honest. He walk off the court. We thinking he just might go to the bathroom or something. He come back next game.
Did he?
Yeah.
He tore his ACL. We just randomly found out he tore his ACL that one year.
But the Clippers were hiding it from us. That's what they want us to know. But even if you look at the first round before he got hurt again, unfortunately, he was low key. I don't think people realize he was low key cooking KD. Him and Russ was stealing the ball from KD, making KD kind of look lost, and then Kawhi was giving KD 37, 38 points. I feel like people forget.
Yeah.
I had to remind him. He gave him 38.
If we say 2019, right, his peak, that playoff run he had in 2019 was absolutely ridiculous from start to finish. You know, what he did each and every game, the clutch moments with that iconic shot, obviously against the Sixers to knock them out. And that was a stacked Sixers roster, with Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, and obviously Ben Simmons. I know they were young, but they're still a very talented team. And then you come around in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think Milwaukee's the 1 seed, that postseason, and you knock them out.
He shut Giannis down.
And that's what I'm saying. Not only are you it's rare to see a guy put on these dominant offensive performances and also these dominant defensive performances. We saw Kawhi multiple times match up his defense with his offense. You know what I'm saying? With Kevin Durant, we've seen him have great defensive moments, but he's not nearly the defender Kawhi is. I don't think we've seen him do the stuff on both ends. We saw Kawhi dominate both ends of the basketball court at his peak.
We've seen Kawhi bother LeBron. Now, I'm not going to say he shut down LeBron anything, but we've seen Kawhi bother LeBron.
Yeah,
we were mentioning KD and LeBron thing last episode. LeBron was still averaging 30 something odd points or whatever the case may be. Kawhi probably in his prime wouldn't let LeBron average 30 points in that case. I just don't see it happening. He probably averaged around 26, 27, which is still good, but it's, but so that's something that KD has never been able to do. Shut down the best player on the opposing team, like Kawhi. Yeah. And then put up 27 points on the other end. KD is obviously a better offensive player, but you're just splitting hairs because he's not the better defensive player, clearly. So.
Yeah. Then if we take those two won championships, but they both did kind of win championships against kind of undermanned groups. Mm-hmm. So 2019 Kawhi, they did win that title, but obviously Golden State doesn't have, Kevin Durant. There's a point where, Klay Thompson has to go out a little later in the series because of his ACL injury, and the Raptors win. So there's the question, does Toronto still win that series if Kawhi and Klay are there? I think it would have been a lot more interesting than people thought.
I think Golden State would have won that.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were up when Klay got hurt.
Yeah.
They were up in that game.
Yeah, they were.
Though they can easily lose too. But Klay, it definitely would have still been a competitive series. When Klay went down, I was like, it's about over. But look, just think about how crazy that is. They had their quote unquote best player at the time. KD got hurt. They still had a chance to win. Klay Thompson got hurt. I mean, they lost the series, but some of them games were still competitive. That's how good they are. That's crazy. But
yeah,
I think I'm gonna take Kawhi.
Let's do this. Let's frame it this way. Let's frame it this way. Kevin Durant's 2017 versus Kawhi's 2019 championship.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing. KD was a part of the Warriors team.
Kawhi, because Kawhi was tearing everybody up during that 2019 run.
Like, think about it. He went on a run where he locked Giannis down. He made Joel Embiid cry, and then I know the Warriors was hurt.
Yeah,
come on, he still beat a decent enough team, and he put the Raptors on their back. The Raptors known for their The Raptors over the last 20 years are known for their more vintage jerseys than having playoff wins.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
Well, let's give the Raptors something. They were a really good team before he got there.
Yeah.
LeBron made sure they stayed.
LeBron.
I'm about to say this, but LeBron made sure they were just a really good team, not a great team.
That's true. That's very true.
Kawhi pushed him over the edge, though.
He did. No, for sure. But I think if we're talking two guys that are absolute like top of their games, then you kind of, like I said, have to go 2017 KD's first championship and 2019 Kawhi's first championship. That run Kawhi had was so ridiculous, and for him to end it, at least with the conference finals, what he did defensively against Giannis was very, very impressive. And still dominating the offensively. Like, you're probably the best individual defensive player of that whole series, and also you're the best offensive player of that series. Like, that's ridiculous.
Giannis hasn't got locked down like that since. And why do you think that is? Because I'm gonna just say Kawhi moved to another conference, obviously, and he's been hurt enough. So we haven't really seen the Clippers in the finals. Obviously, we've seen the Bucks, but we just haven't seen the Clippers. But we always talked about Giannis was like, okay, maybe he improved on these things, and he did improve on some things where he just was better at finding his spots. But he hasn't played Kawhi again either yet.
I will say I think it's more about scheming too with Giannis, because he did run into a couple of, like, I think the Heat had their way against him the year after there was the bubble. And then there was also, like, even last year, the Heat kind of deployed that same, almost a similar defensive scheme against him, when they knocked him out in the first round. I know he was hurt, but there was still a good defensive scheme that he deployed against him to help, get him out of there. So, but still, Kawhi's individual defense, for him to do that in 2019 in the playoffs and also match that up from an offensive standpoint, it's impressive. Only guy that's come close to doing that would be Giannis. And I would even argue Giannis isn't a better defensive player than Kawhi Leonard. You know what I'm saying? Giannis' defensive peak isn't anywhere near Kawhi's defensive peak. Kawhi will go out. We had a point where he would go out there and guard the best guy and still go back and give you 25 plus or whatever the case may be. So,
yeah, I'm a big. You can really, I think people are gonna go crazy over this because they don't think it's closer than you think. When you really go down Kawhi's rap sheet, it's very close.
Yeah, I think Kevin Durant is a more skilled basketball player.
Oh yeah, he's more skilled.
What I'm saying? But I think if we just took these two guys to their absolute best from what we've seen so far, it was Kevin Durant that's up for debate because, as I said, he had an MVP season before he won his first title. He had 4 scoring titles before he got there. And then his best playoff run was 2021, where he averaged almost fucking 40. But, if we take 2017, if we take those two guys that are absolute best, that 2019 playoff run Kawhi put on was very iconic on both ends of the court. And that wasn't that supporting cast was good. But it wasn't like I don't even think it was better than Giannis' supporting cast in 2021.
It was all right. It was okay for him to lift that team. For him to lift that team up, because Pascal Siakam, I know he's made an all-star team or whatever, but he really hasn't looked like that player like Kawhi helped him look like to me. In terms of winning, in terms of playing winning basketball too. Obviously, he still put up his 25 points plus points or whatever the case may be. But the 20 or 23 points he put up with Kawhi just looked better.
I feel like my bad time, but I feel like that team just. I feel like Kawhi coming in. I may change my vote here, but I feel like now that I'm thinking about it, Kawhi really came in just for that 1 year and just changed that team.
Yeah, man.
If you look at the team before, they were kind of, I wouldn't call them. They weren't a top tier team. They just couldn't really get over the hump. Kawhi comes in, they go on a run, and just. I wouldn't say obliterate, but they go on an absolute run throughout the playoffs, knocking out really good teams. Very good teams. Philadelphia was a very good team.
Only if he would have stayed.
Very good team. Golden State, I know we talk about Clay and KD getting hurt, but they still have to win the game or win the series.
Them games were still close. Like them games weren't still like there weren't blowout games or anything like that. And I know the Warriors at one point still had a chance to tie the game. I think game 6 they lost. They still had a chance to tie the game then. But he came in for 1 year. We all wanted him to stay, but I understood why he would want to go back home. Like I'm not about to fault him, but I think that's one of the biggest what ifs in probably NBA history. What if Kawhi stayed? Because like with the Celtics ever made the finals, with the Bucks have ever won a championship, like it's questions like that.
Yeah,
be asked.
I feel like that team really went back to what they were before Kawhi came.
Oh yeah,
that definitely
went worse. Actually got worse.
And we're talking about them. I mean, DeRozan and Kyle Lowry at that time was one of the best backcourts in basketball, and they couldn't make anything happen. You know, like and stuff like that. Blake, you talked about that run and who they beat. They took out the first seed in both conferences. So in the finals, you take out the Warriors, and in the during the Eastern Conference Finals, you take out the Bucks, right? And also, let's take this into account. Kawhi almost was just plugged and played in the playoffs. I know he was there during the regular season, but he was hurt and he wasn't playing for a good amount of the regular season. So we didn't have as much chemistry and camaraderie with that group as you probably would have expected. Because he won that title, it kind of felt a little weird because you didn't really feel the togetherness of that team or whatever the case may be. Like with DeMar DeRozan, it was different. I know he was there for a longer amount of time, but Kawhi was not there for 82 or even like.
Man, that's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? Like he wasn't there for that.
You get traded to a team 1 year and you already. I don't want to sound disrespectful, but you already did better than the person that they traded away.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. It's like they kind of he was just there regular season. I remember us always debating about this in Mr. whose class was it when we were debating this? I was arguing with Ari about this in Mr. Pingle's class. And he was like basically like Kawhi wasn't there their regular season for them as much as you'd expect, for a guy on a new team to actually build that chemistry and camaraderie. And they still won. They still knocked out a bunch of really, really, really good teams. It's that 2019 run is really impressive, but so weird because like y'all said, he was he was out after that shit. You know what I'm saying? So
never came back.
Never came back. It never was the same either. I mean, it was almost 20, and so then there's a stain, right? 2020 is definitely a stain for him. They should have gotten way deeper in the playoffs. They should have at least gotten to the Western Conference Finals. They blew that lead. So, there is that. But, people call Kawhi overrated, and there are a lot of questions. But at the end of the day, this is a two-time champ, two-time, Finals MVP, multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards. I feel like people don't appreciate Kawhi's game or Kawhi's career as much as they should. It's really, really impressive. With the injury still, it's really, really impressive what he did kind of during this, really since 2015 up to now. And that's not even counting the years he didn't play, so.
I feel like it's literally just because he's been so injured. And it's he can't really control.
Very true.